there's a lot of different types of astrology. And there's a type of astrology that is, of course, like prediction, and it's also forecasting, and I love that, and that's amazing. But I really think that astrology is nothing if it's not lived experience, if it's not embodied, and if it's not expressed.
That was a difficult experience for you. And if I had the chart, I would not have to say anything about fall or detriment or anything, but I could look you in your eye and look at that placement and be like, hey, this might have been a difficult spot. Like, how can we hold that together in this moment?
There is a rebirth happening there, and there is a solidifying of a vision or a starting of a vision that needs to be put forth into the world. And depending on the person, they'll be right off the gate with that, and some other people no. But when we get later in the year with Jupiter and Leo, I think a lot of the water processing that we're doing right now is to set ourselves up for that type of outward expression. Even if we don't feel exactly comfortable with it, sometimes fire just needs to burst out and show itself.
Because oftentimes we're hearing this voice in our head and we're acting out on emotions from that space, and we stop right there and we don't get curious about, actually, wait, whose voice is that? Is that even my voice, or is that a voice that I inherited, or a voice from an experience or a projection from someone else? Or am I operating out of a pain story when this is really a pain event that's separate?
Welcome to the COSME Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Lisa Warman, and I'm so glad you're here. You were born at this time for a reason. The energy of this moment, its beauty, its transformation, its challenges, is uniquely aligned with your soul's path. You are here to live a full life of meaning, growth, and deep self-discovery, and astrology is a guide to help you get there. On this podcast, you'll hear from some of the brightest minds in astrology, along with inspiring thought leaders and voices from the wellness space. The intention behind COSME is to foster true community. That's why each episode is recorded with a live studio audience, because I believe the most powerful conversations happen when we come together in person. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. You're here for a reason. So, welcome to the COSME Astrology Podcast, everybody. My name is Lisa Warman, and I am beyond grateful and honored to be sitting here with these three astrologers today. They've been a really special part of COSME's journey, and as mentioned, it is our 2-year anniversary. So, thank you all for being here. We have Cameron Allen, Ashli Scott, Nicholas Polimenakos. So before we get started, I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself and your work. If you could just introduce yourself, and we'll start with Cameron.
Totally. So, hey, everybody. My name is Cameron. Raise your hand if you're familiar with my work already or have come to something. Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, cool. So I guess I'll just give an update rather than like introduce myself. Yeah. Lately, I think I've been feeling myself more moving more towards like being clinical with traditional medicine, while at the same time being more, I guess we could say spirit-led or intuitive at the same time, which seems like it could be kind of weird or interesting for those two things to come together. But I think that's what I've been up to, and just trying to see how my medical astrology practice belongs with a medicine system called Greek medicine or Unani Tib or Islamic medicine. There's many names that it's called these days, but just really working to resurrect or revive the so-called Western tradition, which includes Northern Africa, Middle East, and parts of Europe as well. And so that's what I've been feeling into the most lately. So thanks for being here, and thanks for already knowing about my work. That feels really great. And also doing work with my amazing partner, Ashli, too, as well. So that's what I've been up to as an update. And for those that don't know me, I've done a bunch of stuff. I don't want to go down the list, but if you want to, you can ask me later. I have my cards in the back so you can see my website, and all that stuff is there too as well. So that's what I'll say for now.
Thanks, Cameron. Glad you're here.
Ashley. Hi, my name's Ashley. You already know that. Same with Cameron. I don't want to go down the whole list, and I've kind of been moving through a process of labels with everything I do. So I am an astrologer. I'm a medical intuitive, but I essentially am a multifractaled practitioner of the healing arts. We'll say that. Yes.
Yeah, boo.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here, Ashley. And Nicholas.
My name is Nicholas. I am human.
Yeah, boy.
I'm a professional astrologer. I mix traditional and modern techniques into something else that I've come up with over the years, and it's my life. I love it. I love talking with people. Some of you I know here in the audience, some of you watching, and the strangers out there who I like to meet. Flo, that's my practice. I have a YouTube channel, an Instagram, and my past, how it's been built up to this point as an astrologer, it actually encompasses many things, like fellow colleagues here, and a lot of it is, personal and mysterious. And some of it was built upon waiting tables and a breakfast shift for years. And that's how I actually learned the basis of my astrology, was reading people in short blasts and moments. So I thought I'd throw that in there because I think we're all astrologers at some point, with whatever knowledge we have. I think we're all stargazers, and we all have our natural, organic connection to nature, which makes us astrologers. So,
Yeah, well,
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute because, we'll get into it. Okay, so today I want to preface this. So we usually do a forecast, and I just feel like there's a ton of forecasts out there, monthly forecasts. So I was talking to my dear friend Nestle, and I'm like, Nestle, you're such a good astrologer. What do you feel will be interesting for people to hear? And we started talking about the Saturn-Jupiter story. So I love that, and you really inspired this podcast. So thank you for the topic. So that said, we are going to speak about Saturn and Jupiter and how it's been telling a story since the Great Conjunction in 2020. And we'll talk about where we are now and where we're going, and how we will end up in fire and what that will help us to manifest. So that's where we're going to go today. And before we do, I just want to talk a little bit about COSME and basically the astrology that we do here. So I'm like, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but basically there's a lot of different types of astrology. And there's a type of astrology that is, of course, like prediction, and it's also forecasting, and I love that, and that's amazing. But I really think that astrology is nothing if it's not lived experience, if it's not embodied, and if it's not expressed. Because the planets are actually energy that, we can pick up on, and it can get passed through us. And in retrospect, when we start to look back at certain transits in our life, even perfection years, whatever it may be, we really see a theme, and we see something coming up, and it's a good way to actually look at astrology. So a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, yes, we're going to go over the transits, and we're going to go over dates and all of that good stuff. But I want you guys to know that this is also something that you can sit and actually take in. Something I wrote that I want to share is Saturn and Jupiter have been telling a story since December 21st, 2020, during the Great Conjunction. Saturn's the planet that informs our structures, our foundations, reality, mastery, resilience, karma. Jupiter informs belief, a higher ideal, a higher wisdom, optimism, expansion, growth. Since this time, we've seen huge transformation in our society, both globally and in our local communities. We've seen transformation in our day-to-day lives, how we live, our structures, our government, and in how we energetically communicate with each other. I believe we all chose to be here at this time, and I believe we're all here for a reason, and we all have purpose right now. That said, like I mentioned, astrology is nothing if it's not experienced, if it's not embodied, and if it's not expressed. Astrology is alive, it's living. It's the cosmos giving us guiding light to energetics we can choose to embrace and dance with or not. Astrology is simply a level of consciousness, and we have the ability, the opportunity, and the honor to access it because life is happening right now. Life doesn't happen when we're ready, and it doesn't happen when a specific transit arrives. Oftentimes, astrology gets labeled as predictions, fate without free will, and facts. If we stay married to the idea that transits can only manifest in one way, then we are doing ourselves and our community and even the world a disservice. We stay in the mindset that astrology is happening to us, not for us. I was at NORWAC 2025. It was wonderful. You all were there too. And Colin Bedell said something that I will never forget. He did give a keynote and he said, leaders make you feel alive to feel something more. So simply, why not look at the planets as leaders? Molding the energy to be experienced, embodied, and expressed. And with the energy they bring to us, we feel alive and we do feel something more. So that said, during this conversation, I would like to invite you not only to listen, but to feel into and experience this conversation. We're creating an energy right now in this room. We're all in cosmic communication with the universe right now and always. During this conversation, reflect on how you've uniquely experienced, embodied, and or expressed what we're talking about. Feel into how you can take note of the transits that we have not yet experienced. And when the time comes, watch how that energy manifests through you and feel how that energy manifests through you. Because it does, it will, and it's unique to everyone. So I am in absolute love with the work of these three people right here that I'm sitting with because their work has flavor, because their work is tangible. I think their work is healing, and it's very powerful. It flows from them, their being, into us, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've felt it, and it's just amazing. It's not just facts. It's not just dates. It's not just transits. Their work is a living, breathing entity. Yeah. So that said, I would like to invite Ashli to...
Like, let me stop blushing and almost crying. Right
Oh.
That was beautiful. Just like, I'm going to follow that lead in. All right. Yeah.
But that said, I would love to invite you to lead us through...
a little practice to kind of embody all of what you just said.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was telling... Oh. Quiet back there, Desi. No, I'm just kidding. So I was having a conversation with Lisa, and I just love everything she was saying about being an embodiment of astrology. And we're talking about all this water, and Jupiter in Cancer is squaring my Jupiter Aries right now in my 10th house, and my Libra Mars in the 4th. And so when Venus moved into Libra, I started really feeling into how I wanted my business to be expressed, or even how I met my business and how the passion in which comes from me and expressing that to the world. Like, what does that look like? What is the foundation of that? And when I think of the 4th house, I think of the roots, going to the roots. And even with fall, it's about this nourishment of the roots. And so there's a practice that one of my teachers, shout out to Sigourney Bell with Soma Mystica, she's great. She gives us this practice where you meet your business or something that you're passionate about as a living being. And so I kind of want to take you guys through a little experience to understand kind of my work and what I do and how this can translate into I feel like right now there's a lot of space coming up where we're kind of asking, like, who are we? What are we doing? Where do we want to go? How do we want to push forward the things that we're passionate about? And so, if it's all right with you, I kind of want to set the tone and put us through a little experience and take you on a journey of my business through a very visionary way and a somatic lens, yeah? So if it feels good, allowing your eyes to close, and if it feels better for them to stay open, just inviting you to find a fixed space in the room. And let's just take a moment to drop in and land in this space together. And just let that next exhale allow the chair to receive your body. Just let yourself notice the gravity of your body making contact. And just let that breath slowly start to create space, little by little. And so the work that I do, if I were to meet it as a living being, the way it starts to transform in my mind's eye is I begin to see the top of a mountain. And on the top of this mountain, it's covered with snow. And I can feel the coolness of the air around me, the dryness. And then I enter into the mountain, and inside of it is a little cave at the top. And when you enter into this space with me, you find yourself in a large pool of warm water. You feel it softly caressing your stomach, and as you take that next exhale, feeling that breath drop into your lower belly, feeling the warmth of the water, hold it, allowing it to feel held and spacious. And as you sit within this water, you allow your eyes to wander around the edges of the cave. You see it lit softly with candles. You watch the shadows bouncing off of the walls. You can smell the soft scent of amber and myrrh in the background. And you can just feel your body absorbing the nutrients, the minerals of the water that you sit in. And as you sit in this seat of nourishment, you can see the outside world through an opening in the cave. You can hear the wind blowing. And as you slowly step out of this water and go to meet the edge of the world at the opening of the cave, you feel the brisk air touch your skin, and in this moment you feel the capacity in which you're able to hold the harshness of the wind in a deeper way, in a more present way, knowing that you came to this place from a space of being held, nourished, building the sustainability of your nervous system, of your spirit. Always knowing that that pool of warm water waits for you, that that's the structure holding your spine, your back. And so it makes the world feel a little more manageable, a little more safe to enter into. And so with that, just taking another breath deep into the lower belly and just feeling the tailbone of your spine be supported by the chair. Notice how much space is created in your chest as you inhale, and how much calm settles into the root of your body as you exhale. And in this place, just taking a moment to internally trace your own body right now, to maybe notice where your shoulders relaxed a little. Where your jaw softened slightly. Noticing if this imagery, this experience of my world allowed you to feel inspired in your own. And we'll take a nice deep breath in together. And on the exhale, just softly releasing with a sigh. When you feel ready, slowly opening your eyes, letting it ingest the space visually. Maybe noticing if it seems a little brighter, a little more open. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, just an invitation, just even with that, like, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to show you what I do. Yeah. And using this as a template, right? Because again, I feel like there's a lot of spaces right now where we're questioning a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on where our experience of reality is being tested, and we're being asked to notice where we're holding on to certain emotional stories and making that the reality instead of what the reality actually is for us. Yeah. So just a little practice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And now we're taking a nap.
Yes,
Just
I
kidding.
know. And it's the microphone too. I'm really digging like the up close microphone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That was really beautiful.
Yeah,
thank you, Ashli.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the point of that was to feel in, and everything that we talked about before, it's all about the experience and the embodiment. So now we're going to talk about the astrology. We're talking a little bit before we started recording, and Nicholas was talking about going back in time to give some context. And of course, that's always important. So let's go ahead and just start it off by talking briefly about the energetic signature of Saturn conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius during the Great Conjunction, and maybe what's been happening since then, globally, personally.
Off the bat, that was
yeah.
off the bat. Remember,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
December, and then within a couple months, we were all on lockdown.
Yeah.
Kind of threw us into that. You know, off the top of my head, though, just thinking about Saturn and Jupiter together, I always think of Jupiter first because of what Jupiter sees and wants and shoots for, the vision, the dream, and going for something for that vision. And we all need that, right? We all want that. It gets us out of bed sometimes in the morning. And there's the bigger vision of things. When I think about the next planet in the solar system, which does things differently than that, it's just Saturn. And so when I think of them together, I kind of think of them in that like a chronological order. So it was a Jupiterian vision, and this comes with some hope and some optimism and a little bit of like, I can do that. I'm going to go find out everything about that or whatever. And then in order to make it real, in order to make it reality, comes a heavy hitter after that, and it's Saturn. And so keep it simple. Saturn does want to crystallize, take the vision to Jupiter and make it reality. So when we're talking about the two planets together, that's how I think about it, in the sense of a vision and making the vision a reality. And if I think about that time and where it happened at 0 degrees Aquarius, for some of you probably very familiar with this mathematical degree in Aquarius, because we've had a story with another planet, Pluto, there that has started there, and we're there for the next 20 years with. So in a sense, Jupiter and Saturn set us off back then on the vision, and put us through some places where I think even if we were to take the situation that we're in on lockdown, I think reprioritize things for all of us of how we deal with ourselves and, let's say, our personal space and our autonomous space and what we do there. And then eventually how we take that outside of our autonomous space, and then we start mixing with other people who have come out of their autonomous space with their own vision, their own something, and what happens after that. So keep that short because I know you have something to say. That's what's come up for me around that time there, or the past, and then we're come to this place where we are now. What do y'all think?
Yeah.
About
Does
that?
anyone want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing in like where Pluto is at right now, because it feels like to me, there was like an expansion and contraction for a lot of people, right? It's like being locked down, but people were like expanded towards like understanding what they really wanted, what they really hoped for, and what they really wished for. and we can see like what Nicholas was saying about how we came back out into the world and everybody had their autonomous idea, and how everybody now is like, in a sense, struggling with the Plutonian energy. Like, how can I take this thing that I felt like I wanted to expand out into the world with, and how is it actually challenging me? How are we all going through this initiation? Whether I think something opposite of someone else or not, we're both actually doing that thing. And like, how can I relate to everyone in the process of that, while it also being an Aquarius oftentimes can bring a sense of feeling like I'm going to be fully authentic or I'm going to have this trauma response. And that's the way I've been really feeling into it in general, but I kind of forgot about it until Nicholas said that. So that's what I would say about it, to keep it short. But I really would invite people to think about what has changed for you since 2020, and how now are you potentially struggling with that experience in the world outside, or even honestly too, like even beyond like how you are experiencing that, how's everybody else that you know experience that, right? And considering how it might be very, very different, but it's actually exactly the same, but in their own way. So that's what I would say about it. Yeah.
I think for me too, it's like how something that really was prevalent is like, how are our body's waters responding to safety and expansion coexisting at the same time? Because when I think about Saturn, I do think about this idea of structures around safety, and then the expansion of Jupiter. And as we came back out into the world, it's like, how do those two coexist while listening to the internal waters, the emotions of the body? How does the body feel about that?
And I could see that even working on a global level as the collective, like thinking of water as the collective.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's a little bit of context. So let's talk about what's going on now and where we're going. So, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So we were talking a little bit before this, Nicholas, and you were talking about the Grand Water Trine. Do you want to?
Yeah. So here we are.
Yep, here we are.
I do want to preface a little bit to say that from June to 2024, we're 2025 now. Sorry, I'm an astrologer. We're stuck in the past. We're always looking at calendars sometimes. Sometimes I'm stuck in another year. But we did do, in a relational way, a Jupiter-Saturn square, as they called it, in the last year, and brought some challenges. And so here we are to this point. Jupiter left Gemini in June and went into a water sign, Cancer. And currently, Saturn is also in a water sign. And so they are relating, at least technically, harmoniously. They're relating what they call in the trine aspect. And today, as we do this podcast and we're talking, there's the planet of Mercury and Mars are in another water sign, Scorpio. And so they are, in a sense, starting off a story for the next month and a half, a little bit more, where you have all three water signs that planets involved, and they're all having a conversation with each other, hence Grand Water Trine. And there'll be other planetary bodies that will enter this next month and a half. But when we deal with water, keep it simply, we're dealing with the emotional space, not the mental space per se, what an air sign would do, something like that, but the emotional space. And as we were talking before this, we were giving our opinions, ideas on all this. And to relate it to how we started about this podcast about Jupiter, Saturn in 2020, how I get into this space. So like, where are we now? And it was very interesting what we came up with and what you even said, Ashli, too, about how we started this podcast with your emotional, that's an emotional space and so on and so forth. So from the water perspective, I feel that we are maneuvering through waters right now. And some of it does have to do with the past, because Saturn's in Pisces right now and it's retrograde, it's going backwards. And Jupiter in Cancer is about to do this in a few weeks. And so I feel that we're maneuvering emotional waters. And a lot of times when we do something like this, we're dealing with stories that we carry emotionally with ourselves, through community, through family, through ancestry. Let's say Jupiter in Cancer. And also how that fits in the big, wide open pool and ocean that we're all in, let's say Saturn and Pisces, and how we, in a sense, come to terms with our current state, emotional state, in a sense, an emotional check-in that, in a sense, started in 2020 when we did the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. And here we are, not in a mental space per se, but maneuvering and swimming through an emotional inventory and taking inventory of that. So in the next month and a half, we will do this, and Venus will go through and help out with this, so on and so forth. I'll stop here. Curious to see what y'all feel and think. I should say feel.
Feel. Yeah.
Definitely feel. Yeah. So before we go there, who all is feeling that in the audience? I mean, who is coming to terms with certain emotions? I mean, feeling like, okay, yeah. I mean, it's definitely here.
Yeah, I feel. It was like, my Gemini moon was like, wait, what are you talking about? It was like, wait, like, okay, fine, I'll dream into it. So what's coming up right now, like in my feeling body, is just like around how things have been being stirred up from an emotional place, and how water is very impressionable. It's very impressionable. And just like considering with all the things going on, the Grand Trine can bring like a stabilizing force, but we have to be mindful of what's being stabilized. So if we have Saturn and Mars and Jupiter together, then we have like a combination of something that's aggressive, something that potentially could be oppressive, and something that could be righteous. And how are we trying to work with that from the place of wherever we all are at individually, from an impressionable place? And how can we learn to be adaptable in this time, in this present moment, feel into that, so that this process could potentially be stabilizing, not necessarily because what we are going to see is going to be subjectively positive, but from a place of this is cathartic and cleansing and has been necessary for a long time. And so that's what I feel rather than what I think. So, yeah.
And what would you say, Ashli, I don't know if you can speak to this, but for people who naturally are extremely emotional or empathic or sensitive to energy, I feel like sometimes when we are accessing our true emotions and, you know, taking our game face off and, you know, stepping into really our authentic self, our internal self, what could you recommend for people who are feeling extremely vulnerable, who may not even know how to get to that space?
So I usually like to keep it simple when it comes to that. And I think the way in which water expresses can be either really tumultuous and up here, or it can be low and heavy and lethargic. And so usually I invite people when it comes to that and the expression of the emotions. First, I just want to touch on the idea we have to remember that water holds memory. And this is something we were talking about last night. And so I think in the lens of like, what do we do when we feel this way? I think it's important, especially with the energy going on right now, to feel into this idea that water holds memory, and that all of these emotions, we have to look to the genetic inheritance, like the ancestry, the foundation in which we take the template of how to handle certain emotions. So I think that would be like step one, because I think if we come from a family structure where we have guardians who don't express their emotions, then that makes it even more difficult to know how to handle that. And we may have a hard time being vulnerable or opening up. So I think first recognizing your family template and what you inherited as far as expressing the emotions is important. And then I would say if you're feeling heavy in your emotions, then you want to lean towards something that's going to lighten you up. So I would first think movement, moving your body, moving through fluid movement to kind of move the waters within you, to get your body active, to take you out of the low space. If you're in a high place with the emotions, then I would think ground, and that can literally be anything that's earthing, like roll around on the ground if you need to. I know I teach primal movement, and for me, my waters go all over the place, and I have a lot of fire. I'm a Cancer rising with the Sagittarium, so to be low to the ground and move low to the ground is super important for me. And then I just think of nutrition too, right? So if you're feeling very heavy emotionally, you want to focus on lighter foods, fruits, things that are more high vibration, right? And then if you're feeling really high, root vegetables, things that are going to ground you down. But especially the ones that I teach, like the gifts or intuition through, is always going to be a basis of taking care of your nervous system. And sometimes our greatest ally is our breath. And I think in a world where there's so many things and tools that we have, we oftentimes forget just the quality of our breath is our biggest ally. So even just taking a moment as you're feeling emotionally charged, where is my breath right now? Is it in my throat? Is it in my chest? Is it in my belly? Am I breathing at all? Is my, because sometimes we're not even breathing, right? And I think too, in this world of like 2-day shipping, and where everything is instant gratification, we oftentimes like make the argument that we don't have time to take pause. And I think it's really important to remember that the amount of time sometimes we spend being anxious or emotionally going through something and not being present with those emotions, we could have taken 5 deep breaths and actually understood or at least been able to conceptualize how we feel. So did that answer your question?
I love it. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And I love that because those are all accessible.
Yeah.
Our breath, I mean, it's
100%.
choice. We just
Yeah.
have to choose to breathe.
Yep.
Food,
Yep.
grounding. I mean, all of that. So
Yeah.
thank
Or
you
water.
for that. Or
Yeah,
water.
sipping
Yes.
hot
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Sipping hot water.
Sip on water.
That's the one thing, the first thing, how he pulled me in. Well, in many ways, but it was sip the hot
Yeah,
water.
it wasn't-
Just sip the hot water.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is so powerful because it won the sensory aspect of the warm. Yes. Water spirits.
Sip the hot water.
We
Yeah,
appreciate
boy.
you. Yes.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, for those maybe listening later, we can hear the water going
Yeah.
through the pipes in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So for those listening to recording, if you can't catch
The
that,
confirmation.
Yes.
that's what's going
It was
on
the
right
water
now.
spirit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I even think about even just sipping hot water because, if the water's hot, then you have to take your time. You have to sit and be present with the water and drink it slow. And then you feel that sensory difference in your belly as the water goes down. And then just from a physiological level, it opens up your body to be able to receive. It opens the cells up to be able to metabolize everything that's coming in. So I think lean towards simplicity is what I would say, like with all of that is, yeah. And it also just reminds me of like the idea of a spiral. See, now you got me going and I'm going to ramble. So something that I've been sitting with too as like the world is a dumpster fire right now. Is this idea of the spiral and really being in connection with life as a spiral, right? And it's all about perspective. If we're standing on the inside of the spiral looking outwards towards the chaos, we have kind of a more grounded place to see. But if we're standing on the outside of the spiral looking at everything else and it's all kind of imploding inwards, then our perspective is going to be just that. It's going to feel like we're imploding, like we don't have a handle. And so perspective too is another thing I would say when we're going through an emotional space. Like, where are you at in the spiral?
That is.
Where is your body? Where are you?
Where's your body?
Yeah.
Where's your mind? Where are your
Yeah.
emotions? So everyone stop scrolling.
Yeah.
Okay. Just kidding.
No.
No, but
I'm curious though,
Yeah.
Lisa,
yes.
I can mention a part of your chart right now, can I?
Sure. Which one?
We were talking yesterday.
Like, wait. Yes,
and we're talking about
maybe.
water.
Okay, sure.
And you mentioned your water placements. So I am curious to hear from you.
Yeah.
From your water placements, right? What we're talking about right now at this point. Like I'll let you say what your water placements are. Do you want to say them?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I am the proud owner of Moon in Cancer, conjunct Mars. And it used to be really hard for me as a kid, but now I absolutely love it. And we were talking a little bit last night just about like rulership and, maybe, in my opinion, rulerships that are a little dated. The ideas are a little bit dated. And we're talking about Moon in Cancer conjunct Mars, and I was talking about protection. And especially during this time when we're moving into so much water, it is emotional, but there's also an element of emotional protection, whether that's for yourself or whether that's for the people you love. And being able to really step into that and know who your people are, know who you want to protect, know who you want to stand up for, know where your emotions lie, and what really means something to you inside. And it's authentic and it's true. So that's how I feel with my Mars moon in Cancer. Yeah. But I also feel spiritually, we're talking about like, you know, this is also a spiritual time. And we'll save that for later because I feel like that's more of a fire topic. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah, I love that the Mars piece, and I've been in contemplation with like the rulerships or the whatever, you know, and like yeah, a lot of them are like outdated and like how I was like they're outdated in how they've been presented in a lot of ways for me, and I really love what you said there because I was like, oh my gosh, I agree with this so much. And most of the time, like that activation of protection is like in connection to not feeling safe. And Mars and Cancer oftentimes like has this experience where it's like, I'm not getting the resources I need and I'm about to attack you. Right. And like that, and like how like it's painting the picture of like the experience of something, not having a resource and how it responds to it in a certain way, rather than like sometimes, you know, how they paint it as like good, bad, or blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, not that stuff, but just like, I just find that, yeah, like a mother's like, there's feels like the resources are coming out and it's just attack, like completely attacking. And that happens from that place of like not feeling like we're being taken care of or resourced in a certain way. And so just like, yeah, I was even over here just like, oh my gosh, like I would love to like have a conversation around like the conversation around how they are outdated and how that could like churn my brain of like how we could just change them or like hold them a little different and how they can feel more alive and nourishing rather than like the way in which like, yeah, how it's been passed on to us. Yeah.
I think this is interesting where we are now, because if I'll be just straight up, because you all know that, I mean, today is a massive protest that happened in the United States here. And I think a lot of what that protest is, or whatever the sides are, they're dealing with identity and family and nation, what the identity and memory of a nation is, and then the resources that are within that place. And some aren't there anymore. Some are trying to go back to a past of that identity and what those resources are. And others, it's not that way. And they're wanting to bring in something new or to develop that sense of something that can bring them nourishment. And everyone has their own story individually with this. And then there's a story as in a community or as in a country. And I don't think it's just in the States. I think it's happening globally.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think in modern times and with people immigrating and crossing borders everywhere, we're dealing with those who might not feel comfortable with old structures or old ways that are dissolving. And then you have those who are looking for a home. And so you see it everywhere. This whole thing of trying to maneuver and understand one's past and bring that to the future and the sense of safety and security. So to go back, you know, to your Cancer moon and Mars, and I think it's instinctually sometimes too. It's like we're dealing with protection and survival, and then what people, you know, have learned from their past and what they do in those moments of survival. And it's hard to, let's say, rewire some of that when it's, you know, you're just wired that way, you react that way, you know. So I think when we're dealing with something like this water train that's happening next month and a half, and how we mentioned going back into the past, I think everyone, and even big nation states or stuff, they're kind of looking at that and being present in that place. And it isn't easy, right, what you encounter in those places. But then it'd be amazing as one big nation state, we took in some of the things that Ashli said, like one day that we all did those ritualistic remediations together to kind of move through old stuck emotional stories, right? So unfortunately that doesn't happen, but in one way, a day like today where people are out on the streets and Mercury's in Scorpio, water, Mars in Scorpio. People are speaking truth to something for themselves. And I think it's part of the process, right?
Yeah,
we maybe people today felt safe in numbers to express themselves at this moment in time. And it's part of a step-by-step process of swimming through those emotional places. And we're doing it as individuals, as family, neighbors, and as a country together. And anyway, just some thoughts about the past and like safety and security and protection.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't going to bring this up because I want to stay in our lane, but I do feel like it's relevant. So last night I was talking with you, Nicholas, and we're talking about rulerships, and I was like, it's just so fascinating to me to think about, well, Mars in its fall in Cancer, right? And to think about Mars in Capricorn. And to me, that seems almost, and I guess, quote me, to me, it's a patriarchal placement. And I feel like with Mars in Capricorn, of course, Mars fires off on all cylinders there in Capricorn. It's great, but there is something primal about having Mars in Cancer. And what you said, it is that protection piece because Mars ignites the moon if the moon is there too. And I know this is just my chart, but because we're talking about people who are maybe having emotional confrontation, emotional upheaval right now, or just for the first time actually having to deal with this coming out of being isolated in 2020, they felt themselves, they figured out what they want to do. And now here comes the emotion. Well, maybe we don't have to put so much like action towards the emotion. It could be more of like a primal reaction. And I think that's what we're seeing at the No Kings and just in general, like it's really coming from an internal place. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I have so many things to say there.
Yeah, we can record a different one.
Yeah, totally.
and
We are.
talk about,
Totally. No, I love that so much.
But I think the way that we're framing, to me, outdated rulerships, it's like we need to change that because I do feel like we're stepping a little more into a softer space, or I'm hoping we are. And I know a lot of people don't practice what, we did with Ashli, but I do think a lot of people do actually. And there are really two different energies that are happening right now in our world. And the more we can step into what we want to see and just really lead that way, the better it's going to be. But we'll talk about that when we get into fire a little bit more.
Yeah, but I think something is important about like what we're saying here because we are all stewards of this practice and this art. And so just like, being able to express how we feel about like the way we're taking the craft forward is so important, with the things being so calculated or like the rulerships or this and that. It's like it has disconnected it from our responsibility of like caring for and being responsible for the emotions of the collective in some way. And in the name of like, this is when this is going to happen. This is what this means and that means. It's like, but like, give me a fucking hug. Yeah. Like more people need more hugs when Mars is in Cancer. Yeah. Like it does mean that, like while it also means all these other things. And so I think that's really important. And I would love to keep stewarding this art and practice with you moving forward in another conversation. But like, thank you for that though.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I think it's important too to name just because you said like the Mars and Cancer thing and like we need more hugs. I think that's even kind of highlighted. Nicholas and I were talking about this the other night, just masculine. And like masculine needing more hugs. And I think Mars and Cancer kind of made that more prevalent where we saw a lot of masculine coming out and having more circles for men and just like needing to emote. And there's kind of like this thing with toxic masculinity because if a man raises his voice or has an emotion and isn't able to actually express it, we deem that as, oh, well, he's like being too aggressive or being too this or too that. And we forget that the masculine is men too. And I think that's what I noticed when Mars and Cancer was happening is there was more of a movement around where women have become very hyper independent and are operating out of both roles, the masculine and the feminine, and where men were actually needing to be able to emote more to like assert their emotions or let them be held or just be hugged.
Yeah, actually.
We went through our own process with
Yeah,
this.
I was like, wait a second,
I was
this
like,
is
this
me.
is- yeah.
I'm the one she's talking about right now. I was like, wait, no, it definitely was the Mars and
Yeah,
Cancer. I
it
was
was
like,
that.
you're just gonna have to deal with these feelings
Yeah.
right now, and I know they're a lot.
I love that.
That's so true. Yeah, no, that's so true.
But it just made me even think about you talking about the rulership and the Mars Capricorn thing, which Capricorn is a feminine sign. You know what I mean? And so even how that was showing up when Mars was in Cancer about how those certain constructs need to be reevaluated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You know, I think for anyone out there who's studying astrology or is going to get into it or whatever, I think you do have to know the rules of where it comes from in order to break the rules.
Yeah.
That's
You
true,
know,
100%.
to be very thorough about it, because I, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I'm a traditional this and modern this. I have my own thing, but you do have to need the rules. I also will say when we did the Mars in Cancer transit, which was pretty much, let's just say it's the beginning of this year when Mars was retrograde in Cancer. You remember Mars in flames. And it cuts too, but in flames. And I think a lot of what happened during that period, one can look into their own chart, the Cancer part of their chart, and what was inflamed and came through here. Here we are now with Jupiter going over the same spaces and other Saturn and you know the scorpionic planets that we're dealing with right now. And I think if we're looking at it and how do you remediate or use it or move things in a story, we're dealing with some of the things that came up with that inflammation earlier this year. And I sense in the next month and a half, I think with this Grand Water Trine, we have this is another way of moving the story. So, you know, again, to go back to all this, I just want to mention, like today and tomorrow in the sky, Mercury is in the sign of Scorpio along with Mars. And so there's a direct conduit of truth here that Scorpio can provide at this stage of the Grand Water Trine story. And as we progress in the next couple of weeks and into November, Mercury is going to leave Scorpio, go into Sagittarius, and it's going to go backwards and go retrograde, and it's going to come back. And so we're going to be talking more about this. Even those who spoke truth today, they're going to review what they spoke about, and they're going to come back and eventually speak again. You know, or if it's one's personal emotional story, you can look to all three parts of your chart that are water from Cancer, Scorpio to Pisces, and look for the solutions and the way of moving through in the next month and a half. So I'm just saying this in the end to like put it together is how people can swim through that, feel things out, and also communicate that to themselves or to others at the right times. I think it's very critical with something like Mars and Scorpio with Mercury to like know that you choose a certain time. And if you do, and you do speak your truth, that you have thought it out, felt it. It's not some, like me, I'm Mercury and Gemini. Sometimes we just say stuff. And Mercury and Scorpio is not going to do that. They're going to sit for a while, and they're going to investigate and probe and go to the deepest place with it. And so what I'm getting to is, in the next month and a half, Mercury and Scorpio, Venus is going to go through there. These planets are the ones that help the bigger story of how we like use astrology. So as we get from the beginning, like, you know, sometimes astrology happens to us or we're stuck with it or it's happening to me. If one were to use it, I would use Venus, Mars, and Mercury to help the story move along. So anyway, some thoughts there.
And there's almost a strategy to the emotion there, you know, like with the Mars. So I think, and also just the language with Mercury. So we'll see what's happening right now and today and over the next couple of days.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about water, but just curious to hear from any of you or all of you. We are in the later degrees, you know, with this. So is there anything you want to say about that, or do you have any feelings on that? Feelings.
I'll just divulge here. I have a lot of air in my chart, so I'm going to think about feelings, if that's even possible, but I always thought it was. But obviously, the older I've gotten, things have changed. This year, my solar return chart actually has Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer, and as soon as my birthday happened, I started writing again, like personally, my journal, like poetry, and it was, and tears and other things I was feeling, and anger, you know, and so I'm saying this for people who don't, let's say, don't know how to maneuver water per se. And what was your question again? I'm feeling pretty good right now.
Feelings on this Grand Trine being the later degrees.
And so for me, the feelings have been, to my depths, lots of anger and sadness. And I live by a river. And so I was already going to the river every day, but as soon as my birthday happens, I was there twice a day, pretty much there twice a day. And this goes back to some remediation techniques earlier about things we can do, whether you're feeling emotionally high or low, whatever. But for me, it's just been by water, and I don't have to say anything. It's just been a movement, and I've been reviewing the past and going through and letting myself, as a heavy air sign person, to go through the steps of getting out of my head and getting into another place, and the feeling, and then naming the feeling, and then just being there, and then time disappears, actually. And I think when we deal with elements in astrology, water runs on its own time, and it's different for everybody. And when you're in an emotional space, there is no schedule. There is no between 4 and 5 o'clock, I feel this thing. Like, you know what I mean? You can't just turn on and turn off something in an emotional space. So, sort of to answer your question, for me personally, it's just been a review and going all the way to coming out of I'll be honest, envisioning coming out of the womb and what that was, and maybe what I was feeling when I came out of the womb. And everything from that point to this point, and then putting some, using words personally to name those emotions. And then because of that and doing that, it's helped me move through stories I've forgotten. So I don't know why I'm answering your question that way. It's more for the air signs out there it's a foreign language, swimming through water.
Well, this whole thing started in air. So I really think it's so good that you brought that up and mentioned it, because that could be your experience, but that could also be an experience for the collective, for other people. And so, like air to water, those are two totally different energies.
If you're an air person and you're like saying you're personal with somebody with a lot of water, and you're like, you can't leave the house, oh, that's the worst. You can't breathe. It's like, you can't take it. Sure. Like, you're cornered. There's no way out. Yeah. It can be like that. And, and that brings up stuff like, what am I afraid of? Am I avoiding something here because I can't sit with it, And that's a big part of it. I think the other side of it is, though, air does need its space.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if someone's, let's say, heavy water and they get stuck in their Cancerian spaces and they're bringing everybody with them and down with them, at some point the story's got to move, right? And you have to, there's the other part of water, too, is...
disillusion.
Yeah, and so anyway, it's interesting what you said there, but I just see it in myself. But I mentioned earlier, like, as a country and everything else, I'm more biased towards, we're always dealing, some people want to recognize the past, the emotional past, and some don't. And I think that's why we're at the place that we're at now. And I think, definitely. If someone's aware of astrology and doing whatever, and they can look to their individual world and I don't want to say do the work, because I don't want to do the work when it comes emotionally. I just want to be present and let it move through. Whatever you want to call that, I think that's the type of work one can... I said work. But it's a type of maneuvering in the next month and a half into mid-December, so...
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I would just say, just being mindful of everything Nicholas just said, and how if you're not allowing that to be, the waters to be cleansing, then when things move into fire later on, they might erupt and bubble up and become like feverish. And just being mindful of that, because really at the end of the day, all of it's good information, especially if you're navigating it choicefully and consciously. And if you're really here with us in this present moment, allowing yourself to really take in what we're saying, right? Just like thinking about that, like what happens when you're feeling a lot. I was using, when we were talking before, I was using the example of the lymphatic system and how it's supposed to clear things out in the body. And when it doesn't clear things out in the body, it like erupts in like skin eruptions, or it's like inflammation. And just like being mindful of like, how can you see that, but like from a more experiential, emotional perspective. So when all these planets do move into fire signs, if you find yourself feeling feverish or feeling inflamed, or like you're erupting, just know that that could be righteous, or that could be valid. And also there's still things to clear out, because you can still be all those things without it erupting and being feverish and being inflamed in your own body, because that's also like not helpful for yourself as well. So that's what I would say about it.
And I would just say too, yeah, I think, or I feel it's important to just be very curious and precise in the way that you are being with the emotions that are expressing, because I think there's a lot of erratic energy that is causing a lot of emotions to stir within our own internal landscape in the world. And so, yeah, like bringing in curiosity of where even are these emotional stories that I'm holding on to, or these emotions, where are they coming from? And something I always invite people when we have that internal voice in our head that's like leading us to feel certain things is really being curious about whose voice is that? Because oftentimes we're hearing this voice in our head and we're acting out on emotions from that space, and we stop right there and we don't get curious about, actually, wait, whose voice is that? Is that even my voice, or is that a voice that I inherited, or a voice from an experience or a projection from someone else? Or am I operating out of a pain story when this is really a pain event that's separate? Yeah, I think that's what I would say as a Cancer rising.
So sitting with it before maybe even sharing it could be
Yeah.
really helpful for
Yeah.
folks right now. Okay, so I really want to get into Saturn and Aries and Jupiter and Leo. But before we do, I just wanted to offer some time to any of you who want to ask a question about anything we've talked about so far, because we do have a live Q&A. So if there's anything coming up now before we move on, raise your hand and we'll pass the mic over to you.
Don't all jump at once. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. One sec. Let's get you a mic. Mic him up.
Yeah.
If you want to start beatboxing, feel free. Okay.
Fuzzy little hamster.
Yeah.
This is an addenda to the Mars in Cancer. I've also got Mars in Cancer, and Jupiter is smack on it right now. And there's been a lot of tumult, not just recently, but over the last 15 years, give or take. And I'm curious about the question of rulership. And when I first started getting into astrology, I was very curious about the detriments and fall and exalted. And I was curious about it, but there was an element of it that just seemed like bullshit at the same time. Like it's a distraction from the essence of the planets and the essence of that dynamic and that vibration that they exude. And I have felt sometimes weighed down emotionally and hesitantly with that Mars in Cancer. And with Jupiter there right now, it was part of me doing this when you asked about anybody want to be mic'd up. So I'd like to hear more about that. And it just happens to be in the 8th house too. So, knock yourself out.
Yeah. So just basically the question is for everybody who's listening on YouTube. We were talking about rulership, and Jeff has Mars in its fall, quote unquote. And so you're just wondering how to work with that, or like what the validity is. Is that what it is?
I would like to hear alternate interpretations
Okay.
of that, because when I hear fall, I think of a fall. I think
Well, it's hard when there's a label put on something that is not a label that you desire or want. You know, when you hear you have something that is maybe in its fall, you know, that could feel like, oh, well, I got handed this, you know. But sometimes I think with the rulerships, and if we're just basing it on traditional rulerships, like it's something to kind of work harder towards, kind of like a square, you know. A square causes friction, and so friction creates growth, in my opinion. But I know for me personally, with that Mars and Cancer, I've definitely had to, now I feel like I can't say work on. I can't, well, I've always, since I was a child, I've maneuvered with it, and it was really tough. And now I feel like I love, love, love my Mars, Moon, and Cancer. I know what it means to me, and I know what it doesn't mean to me, because that was what was projected onto me. So I think you just have to, I don't want to make it generic. I don't want to say work with what you have, but you have to look at it in the way that it serves you, if that makes sense. I don't know if either of you want to chime in on that.
You know I want to chime in.
Okay.
So there's a few things there for me. When I was hearing you speak and I was with you, and like when I heard you say, like, even though I can feel emotion coming up right now, you said it was like, it felt like bullshit. My answer was just yes. From that perspective. And also, I do not like to limit astrology, and it is multivalent. So for me, just like, I always like to give the example as like being a medical astrologer, I need to know if this is a problem or not, period. We can all agree to that. If somebody's coming to me and they're saying, is this in detriment or fall? Or it's like, this is not a good time for your health. If somebody comes to me, if I'm like, but Mars and Cancer actually means that, no. You have inflammation, where is it? In your gut, okay. Mars and Cancer, you know, it's like, so it all depends where, like, what is our relationship to the astrology? What is our relationship to the moment, to the person, and what's really going on there? That's the first thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is, in our current space and time, a lot of times we think of the whole astrology chart as ourself. And this is something I was talking about earlier in my lecture or workshop, and it's about identity in astrology. And oftentimes with astrology, we would look at the first house and the ascendant, the first house, and then the ruler of the first house as identity, and everything else would be painting the picture of we, or everything in my environment or my experiences that I've had that have impacted me and can be me, but it's not me, or it's not I. It's like it's a holistic experience of things. And so then potentially what we would want to ask, which could be a deeply validating thing for people if we know how to play with it and hold it, is what does Mars rule in your chart? And were those things difficult in your life? And it would be that simple, right? You spoke to like the difficulty that you might have had before you knew about astrology with the emotions, and you might have experienced that too. And I would say, well, there you go, Mars and Cancer, right? It's like, that was a difficult experience for you. And if I had the chart, I would not have to say anything about fall or detriment or anything, but I could look you in your eye and look at that placement and be like, hey, this might have been a difficult spot. Like, how can we hold that together in this moment? And that would be a beautiful healing moment and an affirming moment. And then we would look to like, what does Mars rule in chart? And maybe we would have conversations about that. And we don't have to talk about anything falling down, but we have all fallen down. And the invitation with anyone with Mars and Cancer is, when you fell down, were you courageous enough to get back up again? Because that's more courageous than anything else. It's definitely more courageous than my Mars in Capricorn, because no one will see it, and I will just strive in the shadows. Yeah. So, and it's like, so it's all about like the context of like what we're working with and what we're playing with. And so it's all about, like my teacher, Prashanti G, he would say, it's like your relationship to the thing. It's not about the thing. It's not about the fall. It's not about the exaltation. Because exaltation could be, you're just a cocky asshole. And you've been lifted up and you think you're just this and that. Trust me, I know this very well. Like my ruler, my center is exalted. And I just always have thought I was hot shit in so many different ways. And it has humbled me through time too. And so it's about our relationship with these things. And that's why I do think it's important for us to have these conversations, because if we're teaching this class, detriment and fall is bullshit. But if we're teaching this class, then we need to know this. And we need to identify this immediately. And so that's what I would say about it, where there could be a nuance of both and, or like, what does like Mars and Cancer, what does it move like? I don't care if it's in fall or detriment or blah, 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 or anything. What does it move like? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? And like, yeah, like how can you be in relationship with that? Because if you know how to be in relationship with stuff, it's all good. Because people being exalted, like you could just feel free, people could freak out.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like if you have the sun exalted in the 10th house, it's like sometimes people are like, this is too much. There's too many eyes on me and I feel really uncomfortable right now. They've been raised up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's subjectively positive all the time. And so I think sometimes when we say detriment, fall, blah, blah, also I think us doing our due diligence and like honoring, respecting, and also updating what the ancients have said, they talk different and they're weird as hell in certain ways to me, you know, but it's like, we have to understand that and like on some level, like hear their heart and what they were trying to say. Yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I just want to say that's a beautiful, I feel like even the way you even just held him just now, when I was feeling into your Mars and Cancer in the 8th, I was going to ask like, how have you been held in the experiences of having like your emotions be center stage, like your hot emotions? How have you been held in that? And the way that you just held him and saw him and received him is such a beautiful representation of the medicine of what the remedy he was looking for, hearing his Mars and Cancer in the 8th.
Yeah. Where, if you don't mind me asking, where is your Mars in Cancer?
Yeah. I think a lot of times when we acknowledge and confirm things with ourselves, and it's reflected in the chart, you know, I've had so many clients since the beginning of COVID that have come to me in tears, angry because I'm just going to go here. Other astrologers spoke to them in a very traditional language, in a way that freaked them out, scared them, or feel like they'll always be stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
In one way, technically, you are. But to go off what Cameron's saying, it's the acknowledgement of anything in your relationship to it and just knowing, okay, this is what it is, or this is what I have. And we're on the modern end of things now. You can't solve everything like, well, this is what you can do and remediate. Sometimes you can, sometimes you not. Sometimes it is what it is, and that is the reality. It's the cold reality. That's life. And life is chaos. We're always trying to find meaning in chaos. So when I say meaning, it's like when we relate to something in our chart that's supposedly in fall or is not as strong as the other planets or someone else's chart or whatever, we can do that. And there's some truth to that, but then we're dealing with one's personal experience and relationship, like Cameron has mentioned, and then looking at it from different ways and acknowledging it, then this, then that, or how does it feel? What does, like you said, what does it taste like, what it is, you know, and that is your own relating to yourself and your own definition. There's no book, there's no whatever that can overrule that. And so for me, you know, I'm trained in certain ways, but I'm also like, I've had to talk so many people down off a certain cliff with this stuff. And it's sad actually, because they've mentioned people that have come to me that I know, that I'm friends with, that they had readings with, and they came out of there, and it's just like, man, it doesn't have to be this way. It's so dogmatic, you know. And so I've seen a lot of damage, you know, and I'm not, again, I have my ways of looking at that. So anyway, to go back around 24 degrees, Mars, Jupiter's there. Remember, Saturn here is retrograding back. It's going to go all the way to 25. It's going to trine your Mars for the third time here in a year. All these other water planets that we're mentioning, especially here at the end of October, Mercury and Mars, they're going to trine your Mars with Jupiter and Saturn. Venus is going to come through in November and eventually hit those degrees. And you know, so, you know, for me, anyway, that's where my brain went, because you asked about the degree, you know, and then I'll say this one too. Jupiter is going to go retrograde here in Cancer at 25 degrees here, November 11th. It's stationing on your Mars right now. when it moves forward next year and we get to June and next year, we have something amazing happen. And there'll be the second Jupiter-Venus conjunction in Cancer in less than a year, and it will happen pretty much on your Mars at 25 degrees. So as we go back during this retrograde and we do all this stuff, I think there's some interesting things to discover in the shadows of your 8th house and walking through the dark there. And there, moving through something like that. Let's say when we get to June of next year, it's the end of the Jupiter and Cancer transit, and it's with Venus there at 25 degrees. I think there's a little something waiting for you. I think a little something sweet and beautiful waiting for you there with a transit like that. Anyway, that's how I'd say that. So
Can I throw in just a little? Okay, so also just like being mindful. There's so many other things besides just like fall, detriment, but like we have like what they call triplicity. I don't know. Raise your hand if you've heard of triplicity. Raise your hand. Okay, cool. So we have that. So you have triplicity. So even if something was fallen, it has triplicity. So it has community. It still has support. You know, we have, and then we have deck, and then we have bound. But these are all just levels of how comfortable do I feel in this space. And so it can tell a nuanced story. And sometimes we, like, even like through today, the people that I was working with today in the workshop, we could see how we were going through the layers of the story and just asking about it, inquiring about it, actually being curious rather than just like coming to some unnecessary conclusion immediately. There's so much there. And then also, I said I was gonna be short. Anyway, okay. So also just like every year is a new blossoming forth thing. So the Mars in your solar return chart this year is different than it was last year, and 2 years ago, and 5 years ago, and so it's like it's moving up and down and changing and posing differently every single year. And so just the idea that I'm gonna have this one thing my whole life is not necessarily true. And in the way the ancients would practice, they actually would say, this Mars has a promise for you. And it promises something at a very specific moment in life or moments in life. It's not necessarily something that you're going to just experience or you just have it. It's a promise. And it renews its oath in particular moments in time. And that's not seen just through transits. And so also that has clouded the vision of how to be in relationship with it, as well as the way that people have taught it in such a dry, unrelational way. And so I want to like breathe life into it and make it juicy and yummy again so that we can dance it rather than fear it or love it excessively even, because even that is like not necessarily what we're looking for. My chart is so good this year. It's like, yeah, awesome. Like, are you a good person still? Are you being emotionally mature? Or when you get exalted, are you being a douchebag? Like, this is what we really care about here. This is what we care about here. So, I said I was gonna be short. Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I've become more comfortable with it over the years as I've learned more about it. And as a kid, it was daunting because I was an only child and I was a sensitive boy.
Yeah.
And this was in the 60s and 70s. And so I had to kind of keep it contained.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, it was my first acid trip, and that all just fell down. It all just went to a puddle. And so, and that's about the time that I really started discovering more about astrology. And, you know, and started reading more about astrology and learned how to do it on paper with all that before computer stuff. And so the symbols became felt.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a few other things in the chart too that have been hard, but that's
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk later, Jeff. Yeah. So, I mean, even just that right there, right? It's like someone told me that I felt too much, and so I did not allow myself to express my emotions and be seen. 5th house. It rules the 5th house. Aries. 5th house, Aries. Mars, Aries. Yeah. 12th house, Scorpio. Hiding what? My feelings. Why? Because no one could hold them. I didn't feel resourced in that. We're painting that picture so clearly there. That's not necessarily your Mars. It was about how you didn't feel resourced to be seen, 5th house, or receive acknowledgement, 5th house. And so you had to hide that, 12th house. But then you went on a little spiritual journey, 12th house.
Yeah.
Got a little trippy.
Yeah.
Started facing those fears and anxieties so that you can express yourself.
Yeah.
And this is the story that we can tell. This is, you know, this is what I see from that description of that placement. And
going
we
through
have
an
not been taught
initiation.
from that perspective, but that's like how I'm like hearing it expressed in like live action here. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nestle.
I would like to say the fallen places, generally, there's no place but going up. With exaltation, there's no place but going down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's good perspective.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, did-
You said
Can
no.
you-
No,
So
yeah.
Repeat that?
Nestle was saying with the fallen placements, there's nowhere to go but up, and with the exalted places, there's nowhere but for the chair to be kicked under you, and you fall now. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Okay, so we know we talked a lot about Mars. Mars is fiery, so let's talk about what's happening in 2026, and we'll just go into this briefly. So we were looking ahead to August 31st, 2026, and we're going to have Saturn in Aries, Jupiter in Leo, both at 13 degrees. I want to wrap it up in this way. So we were talking earlier. I was wondering if this could be a signal of a renaissance of creativity, maybe courage, or radical leadership. So what are your thoughts there?
I think it's going to be about initiation.
Initiation.
Yeah. Initiation is my word because you told us to choose one word, and that was the word
I
that I
love
felt
that.
like was the word for 2026. Because as we've kind of been moving through all this emotional space and really kind of sifting and sorting the roots of where that came from and what our own emotional story is, it's going to be a time of initiating things into action. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That's my word.
I want to say that on February 13th of next year, we're going to have our official Neptune-Saturn conjunction that's going to happen in Aries. We just have to make a note of that as a setup. On April 25th of next year, Uranus, currently right now retrograde in Gemini, is going to go back into Taurus here. When we get to April 25th of next year, Uranus will be in Gemini for good for 7-8 years. So we have planets fully, outer body planets fully in their signs of whether it's air or fire, it's pretty much there. So when we get to Jupiter in Leo, and help me out again,
Saturn in Aries.
Saturn and Aries, they're in a harmonious fire trine, those two. And so when we're dealing with fire, we're dealing with I think just an expression. We're dealing with a story of ego. I'm not saying ego is bad. I'm saying ego is and the need to express oneself, the will, and how we do this. I think in February, this Neptune-Saturn conjunction, there is a rebirth happening there, and there is a solidifying of a vision or a starting of a vision that needs to be put forth into the world. And depending on the person, they'll be right off the gate with that, and some other people no. But when we get later in the year with Jupiter and Leo, I think a lot of the water processing that we're doing right now is to set ourselves up for that type of outward expression. Even if we don't feel exactly comfortable with it, sometimes fire just needs to burst out and show itself. That aligned with Pluto and Uranus in air signs sets up a scenario where when we deal with planets in fire and the need for individual ego expression, can it coexist and flow within groups and social situations and community? Let's say it's Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini, the conversations, the things, how we do. And for me, the fire, air, this is a sextile relationship. It's an opportunistic relationship with all these planets. I think we're taking action next year, whether we like it or not. And do I say my word? No. You're going to ask me?
We're going to do it later.
So anyway, those are my thoughts. I know some of it's data and technical, but I think a lot of what we're doing right now from the emotional level is a purging and understanding where we stand emotionally, what stories we carry and do not carry with us. And when we get to next year, it's only forward. And at that point, I think we see a lot of what we're doing, swimming and maneuvering under the scenes right now, is going to come out next year in many various forms. I encourage people to get in touch with what it feels like to be exhilarated. Now, in a healthy way. Sometimes you got to do things. Maybe it is some mezcal that puts you on a thing. We don't want to do that all the time. But the feeling of exhilaration, the feeling of life surging through you, that feeling of the blood pumping through the body and the sweat that comes out and movement. Just like you can pick any form of fire and think about what fire is. We have the times of fire where things are the embers and they're just slowly doing, and the times it comes up, and it's like a dance, and understanding where you are in that dance. But I think a lot of times I, for some reason, feel with fire an exhilarating feeling. And I also think with fire, and I know some of you here can speak to that, and I'm going to set you up pretty much here right now on this one, is when we cannot help but to express ourselves and we're moving through fire, we do it for ourselves, but I think the byproduct of that touches other people. And so saying that from, let's say, a Leo perspective, like the raw expression, like this is who I am, this is what I'm showing you, this is what I create. Can you feel this? Can I share this with you? Right?
Totally.
That's my setup for you.
Yeah. Okay. So, first, what is your word? I am curious. Let's just go. Who knows?
Honestly, I think next year is fight.
Fight. Okay.
I
Well,
like that.
For better or worse,
Okay.
got to be real.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
think
good.
that's- I
Thanks
think
for
that's
sharing
a
that.
Good word.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of action come this time. I'm hoping it's aligned, but I think that's what this time is for, with the emotion and with really digging into ourselves and figuring out if we are aligned with ourselves or not. But yeah, I mean, just to touch upon what you said with the Leo energy, it's, I always like to show who I am, but I love to give permission for people to show who they are, and that's why I do that. So I think it could be a time of expression, of permission, of individualism, of owning who we are, of really stepping into our power and understanding that really we are our own best leaders, we're our own best healers. We do have the tools, we have it all inside. And just on a wide lens level, I think this could really be that time of courage and leadership for us all as individuals. Yeah. What about you, Sag Queen?
Yeah. So my fire through the Sag lens, I would say, especially with all of the movement of the water, as all the fire moves through next year, it's like, where can your fire actually be concise like a blowtorch and not explosive like a volcano? Because I think the way in which fire expresses is very important. And so it's going to be necessary to make sure that we are filtering our fire through a lens that's precise. Yeah. And that's where I'm gonna stop right there. And my
Yeah, I
word was
love that.
Initiation. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because I feel a combination of all those things. It's like, if you can have your fire like a blowtorch and be a leader and fight, but like fight for like a noble or righteous cause, right? It's like the Jupiter and Leo is like kind of combines all those things there. And, the so-called harmonious aspect of a trine. And like, really, it's like, to me, I'm like, oh yes, my noble, righteous torch fire leadership cause is going to be in a easy flow with the crumbling structure of our society. How harmonious. It's like, I think of it more as an easy flowing thing than it is harmonious, right? And like, things can be easy flowing, but it's like an easy flowing argument, right? It can still be that, which does create some type of stabilizing force, which still allows it to be a trine, you know?
It makes me think about the intentional fires that they do in California. They burn everything to create more growth. And so I think that's kind of what it too is, the fire, intentional fires to create.
Yeah, it happens in Africa
Yep.
too. And
to tear down
that type-
structures so new growth can come forth.
I mean, if
that's a really
anybody's
good point.
artistic or creating, within your space that if you were to break down elementally what you do creatively, using the elements and what fire is, we do melt things down. We melt things down to get to, I mean, that's what fire does too. We melt things down to its purity to get to a place. A lot of times when, like next year, when, you know, there's going to be, if there's any planetary conjunction in fire with the sun, that's going to happen. I have to throw this in here since we're here. I mean, basically, when we get into next year with this Jupiter and Leo and Saturn thing, Jupiter and Leo, it's an interesting story because the eclipses are going to start happening in Aquarius and Leo, and there's going to be situations where it'll be Jupiter opposite Pluto in Aquarius, and Jupiter conjunct the South Node, and Pluto conjunct the North Node. So I think a lot of times with stuff like this, regardless whether it's blowtorch method or it's a raging fire or it's the embers, I think understanding where you stand in that part of a fire story for yourself. But regardless, it melts, it inflames, right, and expresses. But if we were to take it on a social, political commentary that I'm going to do here, I think here that is groups and communities and where we're going to go. Let's say it's Pluto and Aquarius and how we're using something new and different ways to exchange ideas and our thoughts. Uranus and Gemini, along with Saturn and Neptune in Aries and with Jupiter there, I think there's a way and a conduit to how we exchange those ideas. We still keep our autonomous space, our individualistic, emotional way of doing things, but we start to share with each other. And it's an experiment. It's not going to be perfect. Sometimes it's going to burn something down. Sometimes it's going to be this. But I think we're outward. And so I really like the words and mantras, like if we are going to fight, or let's say like I did, that it is for a noble cause, very Leo, you know. What's the Wizard of Oz, the lion, you know, the heart, with the heart, and discover the heart, put the heart back in, and knowing where you stand, you know, with yourself and with those that you connect with, you know. And that's the amazing, beautiful thing, I think, with humans, is once you connect with those you would consider your family that you're aligned with, on a creative level, you could do anything. And I think it's very important to remind ourselves of that just when things seem to be at their worst and breaking down, right? That new things come from the flames. And so one starts with igniting the creative flame with themselves, you know, and then next thing you know, you're out there and you see somebody doing it in their way, and then you do it together. And that's how movements are born. That's how things change, you know. So,
Drop in. Yeah. No, that was great. Yeah. I feel like I was going to ask what we would tell the audience to do, and I just feel like you just did it all. So now I don't know. Does anyone want to chime in on that? Or
I feel it reminded me of a talk that I went to with Jason Foley. Jason Holly, sorry, Jason, where he was talking about Pluto and Hades, and he said it just reminded me when you were talking about community and the necessity of that. And he said something about like when we're working through certain traumas or certain anger, oftentimes we'll get mad at the parents because for like our problems, and what we actually don't get curious about is how they lacked community and they didn't have resources in order to give us the resources that we need. So I really love you touched on that, holding individuality and also having community, because I think a lot of us feel under-resourced when it comes to community. And a lot of times we act out in ways, and there's so much division happening in the nation right now and in the world, that remembering that we all need to come together as opposed to letting things divide us. And so I love that you touched on like the necessity of community and having that courage to actually be a part of a collective group, because I think it's needed.
Oh, it's
tribal structures.
It's happening today. I mean, I picked Cameron up at the train today, and it was right where the marches were starting. I was looking at everybody, and you got some Pluto and Leos there. They've been through this before. Yeah. And then you got some Gen Zs over there, and they're just kind of like, how do we do this? Yeah. And then, you know, but kudos, they're out there, they're trying, because they could be on their phone and not go out there because they don't know how, or they're afraid. Regardless, somebody like Gen Z generation, they can only be on their phones for so long, Because if you can't pay your phone bill, or if whatever streaming services that you're addicted to, you can't pay for them anymore, or whatever, there's certain realities that touch your survival.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that place, what do you do when you're in the survival mechanism? You have to fight. And so, it's how you do it. And so from collective communities and how people are doing support with each other, there's many of us who know how to do this. If you're coming from activist backgrounds, there's many who don't. And I think that's part of the exchange of ideas that's going to be coming in the next 5 to 7 years, is how we reinvent that, how we do that, and what we prioritize in communities. And in the end, the Western civilization and Western culture, because of capitalism and hyper-capitalism, has siloed us away from each other. I was reminded traveling earlier this year, even in a Western state like Australia, it was 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, and it was rainy drizzle. And there were so many people out in the streets, and they were all at different age levels. And I was like, it's very Euro, South American. And then I started thinking about the United States. I know you might catch that in New York or whatever, but ever since COVID, along with the economics and the reality that people are in a survival mode and division, no one talks to each other anymore. No one looks at their neighbor, and there isn't a sense of togetherness. And so when you get to a certain point, I think humans, regardless of the astrology, you have to take care of yourself, but you can't do everything alone. And so when I talked earlier about the creative something and finding the creative language with people, sometimes the creative language is, hi, neighbor, I made you a pie. You know what I mean? It's like, it's these simple things. And from there, other things come from, like that kind of thing. And I think many of us have forgotten how to do that. And our culture and society have broken that down. And there's many who don't know how to do it. And I think there's no other choice but that, in the future. So I am excited for this. Did it have to take to get to the worst places? But we don't give up, the ingenuity of humans and what they do collectively, whether it's through a pie, sharing of a pie, or baking cookies for somebody, or like, hey, you're a single mom with 3 kids. I see the situation that you're in, you need to make this appointment, or you deserve a massage. I can't do it. I got my kids, no one helping me. So collectively, the neighbors will take care of your kids, feed the cat, will take care of yourself. Little things like this is everything. And I think that's what's coming. It's not easy, though, when you have to reprogram yourself or as a culture to do this stuff. But when you have no choice, it's amazing what humans do with each other, So that is what I'm betting on. That's what I'm gambling on. I'm a total Saturnian pessimist to a certain point, but really, I'm a hopeful person. And I see and I know what humans can do. I know with my clients. I know it within myself. So today, when I picked you up at the train, I was right before I saw you, I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. I see this, and I see more of it coming. And I'm like looking at people, and they were happy just for that moment.
Yeah.
Just for that moment of expression. And they were doing it with each other. And there's many people who can't do that. And so the people out there were speaking for these other people who aren't in a place of privilege to walk out of the house, or they don't know how, they're afraid, or maybe they have medical challenges, whatever it is. These kinds of things, they grow like wildfire. And it takes a step-by-step approach, but it does take a little bit of hope and a little bit of dreaminess, to believe. And if someone is not feeling that and they're in the dark place, if it's so simple as like, look at that person and what they just did, and then the spark happens in that other person, right? So anyway, I'll stop. It's a thing where on a weekend where Mercury and Mars are in Scorpio, to me, that is at the heart of everything right now. So when we maneuver through the water here and we're in those tough places, we're doing individualistically, but you know what? We can do it together, just like we did on this podcast, right? How we're talking and the whole deal, but it's a big setup for next year. And I'm psyched for the air and fire. I'm psyched for the Jupiter and Leo thing. I'm like, Okay, bring it on. And I used to have a beef with Leos for years. I couldn't stand them. I have a South Node of Leo. It took me a while to come to it, but then I had certain situations that came into my life, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. And what would I do without Leo energy? You know, so regardless, when we get to next year and Jupiter energy and Leo, let's think about this, because when we get to this, and if our reactions, we see someone doing something Venus in Leo, Jupiter in Leo, and like, oh, they're being Leos again. But like, what is it that bothers you about that? Like for me, I had to deal with that. And it was because, you know what? I forgot how to show myself. I was scared to show myself. I got pissed at the Leos for doing it. Some of them, though, still. But so regardless, it's those kinds of things. So again, from an expression level, when we get to next year and certain things, and someone's doing this, and like, look what that, I'm like, man, look what you made. That's incredible. I'm with you. I'm going to do it too. You know, and that kind of energy, that from the Leo placement, and then how we deal collectively, I'm ready. I'm like, okay, let's bring it on. And we'll have a year of this, by the way, you know, when Jupiter goes in Leo. So thank you for listening to my thing.
Well, I think you made everyone ready. And thank you for that, Nicholas. That was beautiful. And I think that is such an amazing note to just tie all this together, to know that next year could be a time of initiation, to fight with courage, to fight for your values, what you believe in, with your community, the people that you love, and have very strong leadership for yourself. So that's what we're heading towards. Let's all manifest that. Let's all feel into that. And yeah, I think we're going to wrap it there.
Wait a second now.
What?
You talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
What happened to you? Went to your first conference.
Yeah.
And you didn't know anybody, and then eventually somebody came up and asked you your big three.
Yeah.
Okay. And then your journey till now, 2 years later in this space. And so we're talking, and we know we're Leo, and I was thinking about your Mars and Moon and Cancer, and I'm thinking about every time I've come in this place, I feel at home. Like I come in here and I'm like, it feels good. It feels good. And it's with the mix of your Leo expression too. Like it feels good. So I want to acknowledge you and this journey 2 years. And I mean, a lot of us are here listening and been here before. You've created, you know, a space where I think I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself, that I've been able to express myself my way and being seen and confirmed and acknowledged. And it just feels good every time I've walked in here. So I can only imagine anybody else who's been here for sound baths or whatever, and, you know, and the whole crew, all of you that uphold this space and keep it going. I mean, that's a feat, you know? And so thank you, Lisa, for...
Let that water come, Nick.
For this home you have created. I know for me, it's like a second home. So thank you for that. So.
Thank you. Mars, Moon, come on. No, thank you. I'm speechless. And at the same time, I just want to thank the community, because this is a labor of love, and opening a wellness transformational experience astrology studio, it's not like, you know, I'm out there in the tech world. Like, this is truly for everybody, because I know myself, I have been through a lot in my life, and I have really healed through astrology. I've discovered through astrology, and I've met some of the most amazing people through astrology, everyone here included, and have been able to have these amazing conversations. And I feel like I can express myself through this beautiful language, and I hear you expressing yourself, and I love it. And I hear you expressing yourself, and it brings me so much joy. And Cameron, I hear you expressing yourself, and I'm just like, damn. So thank you all just for being a part of this journey in any capacity. Some of you, like I said, are clients, some are students, some have been to the sound bath, some have been here supporting us on this podcast. So thank you. And, it's interesting that we're moving into fire and air because my counterpart, my right-hand woman, Tabitha, my Aquarius stellium, and here I am with my Leo stellium. We just make this thing go, and we're just overjoyed to have all of you as a part of it. So thank you for all of the energy all of you have infused into this space, because we are all energy and we all feed off of each other and we react off of each other and we love off of each other. And it's just been beautiful. So, and thanks to Abram for being the best, coming to Norwalk, making a documentary with me, filming all our podcasts. And thanks, Michael, for all the support you give me in this journey. Okay. That said, we're going to close it out. Thank you, Nicholas. And we're going to party now that I'm emotional. So there's a party after this, and we would love for all of you to stay. And we're just going to be hanging out. We have people waiting outside, so we'll probably let them in. But before we do this, I just want to go around, and I want people to know where to find all of you, where they can find your work, how they can work with you in any capacity. So
yeah,
you
absolutely.
Want to start, Cameron?
Yeah, so my cards are back there. You can come and ask me my Instagram. My Instagram is CADream6. I have a website, cadreamplanet.com. You can always just type in Cameron Allen Astrology. I'll be the first thing that pops up, Lord willing. Tomorrow, I'll be teaching a class at 12 o'clock over astrology and wellness. I forget the exact name of it, as I do forget all the titles of everything that I have as lectures. But it'll be great, and it'll be a great experience. And me and Ashli are going to be teaching a class tomorrow too, with a combination of medical astrology and medical intuitive work. That'll be really amazing as well. Soon, I'm going to come out with a Astro Wellness program, which takes people through a 4-week process of understanding how your chart works with your body, your constitution, and working with traditional medicine, from how to be in relationship with eating styles and habits and ideas based off your chart and how you experience things emotionally, off of herbs, off of movements. And then also there's like an integration week where we figure out how does that actually fit into your life in a way that will actually allow you to become more well in your life, in a way that's not dogmatic, in a way that is rooted in tradition, but also what do you have going on in your life? I have mentorship program or personal development programs as well. So yeah, that's what I have going on.
Thank you.
Yeah, my website is lunarcrystalline.com. I did not bring cards. I'm not good like that, like he is. I have no earth in my chart.
Cap Daddy.
Neptune and Capricorn doesn't count. So my Instagram is lunar_crystalline. I am a somatic trained coach, practitioner. I work with people to develop their psychic gifts. I do a lot of things. And so I put it all through the lens of astrology and human design. We connect it with herbs. We connect it with practices. We connect it with sacral embodiment. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of things. And again, I'm not going to list off all the things. But yeah, if you want to talk to me, come find me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ashli.
Thank you.
And by the way, everyone, these will be in the show notes if you're curious about working with anyone. And Nicholas.
I am Sparkles of Gold. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram. My books are always open. They're never closed. My Patreon members and YouTube paid members, they get to see more. There's more coming. I do a lot of interviews with astrologers. I have other plans for more content. I'm about to take a risk on YouTube and push things too from the political end, and about to really speak my mind on there because it's happening.
It's happening.
I also work behind the scenes at the Northwest Astrological Conference, which is NORWAC. I've been working and helping Laura for years. Originally developed the online during COVID, those conferences I did with Laura. I also work for the United Astrology Conference, which is the biggest astrology conference that's going to happen next September. If you want to put an ad in there, talk to me. I'm also running the marketplace with all the vendors there. And I was part of the committee that helped select many of the lectures for that conference. and I do a lot of things behind the scenes in the astrology world besides my own practice. And that's who I am. So just sparkles of gold. If you say it 3 times, know what you're getting into. Okay? So saying that.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Awesome. Okay, and as for me, of course, I'm here at COSME. I hope to see you all here. We have sound baths scheduled through the rest of the year. I am seeing new clients, and I have a very exciting announcement for 2026. And I'm going to go ahead and just say it here for the first time. I will be offering a school, and it's the COSME method. And so what it is, it intertwines somatic healing, energy healing, astrology. It's just everything I know, and I'm really excited to offer that to everybody. So I'll start making announcements soon, but I just want to thank you all. This is such a special night, and thank you to you 3 so much for being on the show. It's been great, and thank you guys for being on in the audience tonight, and let's celebrate. Thank you.